coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has set starting times for next Sunday's NFC and AFC championship games. The Rams are at Seattle, 3:30 kickoff local time on Fox. In the AFC, New England is at Denver, kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy MLK Day from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. Don't forget to tune in for a special rebroadcast of the Empowerment Congress Gubernatorial Forum, hosted by Tavis Smiley, with special commentary by Dr. Neek Hordelai-Corte. That's 4 to 7 today on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA. Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. On this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. I almost called him just the Dreamer. I think we did that for the first 3 decades of this holiday. But now we're digging even deeper into the message, what Dr. King has to say for these times. Our guest in this hour, Reverend Adam Russell Taylor, is president of Sojourners and author of A More Perfect Union, a new vision for building the beloved community. Follow him on Blue Sky at Rev Adam Taylor. Taylor previously led the Faith Initiative at the World Bank Group and served as vice president in charge of advocacy at World Vision US and the senior political director at Sojourners. He has also served as the executive director of Global Justice, an organization that educates and mobilizes students around global human rights and economic justice issues. He was selected for the 2009 and 2010 class of the White House Fellows and served in the White House Office of Cabinet Affairs and Public Engagement. Taylor is a graduate of Emory University and Harvard University, the Kennedy School of Government, and the Samuel D. Whit Proctor School of Theology. Taylor also serves as an independent sector board and global advisory board of the Tier Fund in the United Kingdom and is a member of the inaugural class of the Aspen Civil Society Fellowship. Dr. Taylor, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Happy 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. Also joining us is Reverend Dr. Ted Williams. He is a professor in the city of Chicago at Chicago City
Kennedy King College.
Kennedy King College.
And the city colleges. Our school is named after Dr. King.
It certainly is. Dr. Taylor, let me ask you a question. Your reflections on this being the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. And if you don't mind, juxtapose that against the world that we find ourselves in at this hour.
That is a really timely and powerful question. I mean, as I reflect on Dr. King's legacy, one of the things that pains me, and just to express some of my admiration and love for Dr. King, I'm proud to be a member of the same fraternity as Dr. King, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Everybody can't be a Q, bro.
Hey, well, love for the Penland Council as a whole, but I also, when I was at Emory, had a chance to volunteer at the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change and led tours. This is back before it was the full museum that it is now. But the civil rights movement is very much kind of framed my life and my sense of vocation. And one of the things that pains me is when we overly sanitize or freeze frame Dr. King. You kind of alluded to this in only one little section of his I Have a Dream speech. And that is not the totality of Dr. King's dream. He had a bold and transformational vision, both for the United States, but also for this world. And I know that we'll be reflecting on his Beyond Vietnam speech, which, to note, was arguably the speech that led to his significant dip in popularity in the country before he was tragically assassinated. He had the courage to stand against the Vietnam War because of his Christian convictions. And as you know, in that speech, he names the three evil triplets, or the three triplets of racism, militarism, and materialism. And we are still grappling with those triplets today in our nation. The other thing that I think is really important to note is Dr. King understood the principal importance of voting, of the right to vote, as being foundational to all of our other freedoms. It's part of why the 1965 Voting Rights Act was one of the crown achievements of the civil rights movement. And, you know, for Dr. King, he believed that by securing the right to vote, we as a people would be able to ensure that there is truly liberty and justice for all, which is obviously a creedal promise in our nation's constitution. And yet fast forward over 50 years later, and we are still struggling with a modern day fight over the right to vote. That we are seeing efforts to try to restrict voting, particularly among Black and brown communities around this country, all under the pretense of election security and to somehow combat election fraud. And so, you know, there are a number of issues that we are facing that I think Dr. King would be both, you know, heartbroken about and would be vigilantly speaking out against. And so I think that kind of courageous, bold, countercultural ethic of Dr. King is something that we desperately need now, particularly as we face arguably the greatest assault on our democracy that we have seen, certainly in my generation, but arguably in our nation's history.
You know, Ted, Reverend Taylor touches upon the idea that the Robinson versus Calais decision, we are still waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court of the United States that could very well strike down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act on this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr.
What is the irony of that? I would say that as Reverend Taylor spoke, I would actually disagree with him on one point. He said that we're grappling with these questions of racism, militarism, and materialism. And I wish he was correct. I don't think we're grappling with them. I think we're at a place where we have embraced this materialism. I wish we were grappling more. I wish we were having more conversations about, is this the kind of society we want going forward? I wish we were having more conversations about the use of our military. And as you said, how can we be at the 97th birthday of Dr. King and be talking about restricting the right to vote? This just seems like insanity to me. But it is so critical for, once again, people of good conscience to stand up and move forward at this time. For such a time as this, my theological brothers, this is really where we are right now. That moment that Esther faced, that moment that many people in Scripture face, where they have the opportunity to stand up and make a difference for their generation and generations to come. And that is the time we find ourselves in.
Reverend Taylor, we have about 1 minute before we come forward. So I know when we come forward, that means we're coming to our break. When we do come forward, I'd like to hear your thoughts about Renee Good in Minneapolis and the overall ICE context of Dr. King. For me, at least, and my study of the Civil War to the present, this is really the first time, Reverend Williams and Reverend Taylor, that the federal government itself is no longer an entity that we can rely upon on the questions of justice. Now imagine that in this federalist system, we've always gone to the federal government to get a redress of our grievances. But now the federal government is saying, by eliminating all of these departments of civil rights in almost every conceivable cabinet level position, they're simply saying they're not enforcing historic discrimination against African Americans, women, Native Americans, or any of the believers We're part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s coalition. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Reverend Adam Taylor is our very special guest, filling in for Teresa Hort Owens, and our regular contributor, Reverend Ted Williams, is here on the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, good morning, kiddo. I love that you're home from college. I've missed you.
Still taking your Nature Made vitamins?
Every day. A multivitamin and a probiotic. You better be taking yours.
Still looking out for me, Mom.
I'll never stop.
Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand. Find us in the vitamin aisle, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Moving Mountain Mondays and the Faith Not to Fold with our regular contributor, Teresa Hort Owens, who is not with us today. We're very grateful that Reverend Adam Taylor is sitting in for Reverend Owens today. And of course, Reverend Ted Williams, our regular contributor, is also present. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Taylor, let me ask you this question. Given that this reflection does include Martin Luther King Jr., given that Selma to Montgomery, which ultimately led to the Voting Act, began with the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson, James Bevel at that funeral says that we need to march from Selma to Montgomery. Obviously, John Lewis crosses the bridge and we confront the Alabama State Police on that occasion. But on the sojourn back and forth between Selma and Montgomery, Reverend James Reeb is killed, a Unitarian minister. Viola Luizzo, a white woman, is shot in the face. She's called a nigger lover. I don't like to use that word, but that's exactly what the testimony revealed. And now we see this woman in Minnesota patrolling, if you will, keeping her eye on her First Amendment right, the behavior of ICE and her neighbors as an American citizen. And the federal government, through its agents, shoot her in the face. These times almost perfectly reflect the times during the period when Viola Luizzo lost her life between Selma and Montgomery. Reverend Taylor?
So this strikes really personally for me because I happen to be in Wisconsin now. I'm giving a keynote address in Wisconsin, Martin Luther King address, but I was in Minneapolis earlier today. My brother lives in the Minneapolis area, and I literally went to the memorial for Renee Good, where she was murdered by the ICE officer. And what is really clear to me is that the Trump administration is using this mass deportation policy as the tip of the spear to consolidate its power and try to impose control on particularly blue states, blue cities, etc. And I think that is part of the reason that Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, was chosen, because of its history of activism, civic activism, its strong commitment to a social safety net, and to embracing diversity as a strength, not as a liability. And one of the things that I think we have to be really clear about is that Renee Good should be with us today, that she sacrificed her life trying to care for and protect her immigrant neighbors from the excessive force of ICE that has now been declared illegal by a federal judge who literally compared what ICE is doing in Minneapolis to what was happening in Birmingham at the height of the civil rights movement. That this historical parallel was recognized by this federal judge, who has now put an injunction to block some of the excessive tactics of ICE in Minneapolis. If we don't support faith leaders and community leaders in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities right now to make a moral stand, this kind of ICE surge and these excessive, often unlawful tactics are going to be replicated in other cities and localities all around the country. There is a major call for a national boycott and a day of action on the 23rd of January, so this coming Friday. And I know there's many different groups that are involved, including Isaiah and more, that are calling for many national faith leaders to come into Minneapolis to be a part of this. And so I really think this is a moment where not only do we have to mourn the life of Renee Good, but we have to make a courageous stand against the overhanded and excessive tactics of ICE and ultimately get ICE out of these cities, get justice for Renee Good. It's ridiculous that this administration is arguing that ICE officers have immunity. I mean, in what world is that true, particularly if we believe in no one being above the law and we believe in due process? And we have to do as much as we can to humanize those immigrants that are on the front end of so much of this cruelty and so much of this intimidation. So I really see this as a kind of civil rights-esque moment. And you know, the tactics of ICE, the raids, the disappearing of people literally is one step further down this slide into a more authoritarian type government.
Reverend Taylor, what was the mood at the memorial? What was being said? How many people were there? And what about her family? What take us to that place.
So I only went to the site where there's flowers and there's pictures at the site where she was killed. So it wasn't like a memorial service per se. There were a handful of people there this morning, but I was there pretty early. So, I mean, and it's also 2 degrees here there in Minneapolis. So I wasn't surprised there wasn't a big crowd. But for those of us that were there, there was kind of a somber mood, and we greeted each other. I learned a little bit about some of the folks that are kind of providing a ongoing witness at the memorial site itself. And I would say that the people that I have talked to in Minneapolis have both a sense of deep anguish, but also deep resolve, that they believe that their core values are being attacked. And I would argue what they are standing for is directly aligned with Dr. King's message and vision, and it's directly aligned with the best of our Christian values and of our constitutional values of ensuring liberty and justice for all. And so that's a little bit of what I picked up on so far.
Reverend Taylor, I know the history of the Disciples of Christ, and I certainly know the leadership of Reverend Terry Hord Owens. Are you sensing a coming together between African Americans in Minnesota as participating broadly, generally, empathetically, sympathetically with Renee Good? There's no racial division there. And I know that the church, the Disciples of Christ, focuses on that. I'm wondering what you're seeing on the ground. I know what we did for George Floyd, and I know how the community came together. Is the same community coming together for Renee Good?
In many ways it is. I mean, I am grateful that a lot of the infrastructure and the relationships and trusts were built after the murder of George Floyd have endured, and that they're able to build on that for this particular moment. I know that Isaiah is a congregational organizing network that has a lot of African American leadership, and they're part of organizing some of these actions next week on Friday. And so I do believe that the African American community, as well as the Muslim community, we have to remember that so much of the other reason why I think this administration is targeting Minnesota and Minneapolis is because of the large Somali community that is there. And to refer to Somali Americans as garbage is not uncommon for this president. But I believe in my faith tradition that every single person is made in the image of God. And that kind of language mars and defaces that very image. And so I think there has been just a rallying of the people of Minneapolis, because what is happening is so antithetical to their sense of community values, their commitment to one another. I mean, the amount of mutual aid that is pouring out to support immigrants and others that are in harm's way, the amount of activists that are marching nightly on the streets, including providing vigils outside of one of the notorious detention centers called the Whipple Center. I mean, there's a lot that's happening that I think is pretty encouraging and pretty inspirational.
Reverend Williams?
Yeah, I echo what my friend Reverend Taylor here is saying, that when you see people standing up in the midst of injustice, it is really what this country is about. And so rather than looking at the Trump administration and all of his threats to civil rights and civil liberties as a scar on the American story, I believe in many ways this is what's going to help us to become America. This idea of making America great again, going back to some nostalgic time when many people in the American story were not a part of that story. I believe that this is making us determine and decide that we're going to be great once and for all, that we're going to we're going to expand this notion of democracy, this idea in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That has never existed for us in this country. And so Donald Trump, in a very warped way, is actually going to move us closer, because it's waking up the average person who might sit back and say, I don't really get involved in politics. I don't know anything. I'm not, on the front lines. But when ICE comes to your community, particularly for immigrants who might come just to say, hey, I'm here to make money and live my life and not get engaged in these things, well, that's not going to happen. And Donald Trump's anti-immigration policy is going to make sure that you are going to become political too. And in that way, ultimately, it can actually benefit the democracy.
Mm-hmm. Can I just mention one other quick point? One of the things that I thought the current police chief of Minneapolis did so effectively, I think his name is O'Hare, was really make the argument that ICE's violent presence in Minneapolis is actually making the overall city more unsafe, because they are having to respond to community members that are deeply concerned about what ICE is doing. And police officers are concerned because they are not practicing the kind of protocols that any enforcer of the law would have to exercise and adhere to. And so as much as this Trump administration is using this false argument, this basically lie that they are concerned deeply about law and order in our cities, what they are doing is directly undermining that. And I think we really need to be clear about that and call that out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that that there's no doubt in my mind that, well, I guess I want to ask the question, is this political, or is this something that is inherent in human nature? I think both of you all can answer the question, because we don't know who these ICE agents are. To your point, Reverend Taylor, they're not trained in the constitutional, the Miranda rights, the various protocols necessary to provide law enforcement at the local level. Their only responsibility at one level is to honor the Constitution. But these forces in our community seem to be without any control, without any training, and without any discipline. It's almost as if, I'm not going to go so far as to say that, it's almost as if they gave badges to the January 6th rioters and then put masks on them.
Well, to be fair, there might be some overlap, brother. There may be some overlap. And, I will tell you, we have to see what is happening here. As you both are students of history, understanding that after the Civil War, the Confederates did not have to truly make amends for their participation in an attempted overthrow of this government. In the same way, this president has pardoned 1,500 people for their involvement in this way because they represent this ideology of whiteness in America, of this individualism, and really this commitment to weaponry and violence, Second Amendment, that sort of thing. These are the people that unfortunately tend to get connected with some of these law enforcement entities like ICE. And we have to recognize that. And we got to start, to the point of this whole conversation, speaking to the heart. We've got to start working with these folks prior to even getting in these positions to help them to understand humanity. Have you ever even been in a situation where you've been around Somalians? Have you ever been in a situation where you've been the minority? What a phenomenal experience for people like that to be in a minority situation and have to engage with people that don't look like them. We have to have, as we've been talking about, a revolution of values in the society. And I think we ought to be targeting our law enforcement very heavily on this because they have the power of life and death in their hands.
I'm deeply concerned. Reverend Taylor, do you sense that the clergy have been responding on the scale of the problem with ICE in our communities?
I think it's stronger in some places than others. But I think there's a growing movement that is underfoot to try to get a lot more clergy engaged and off the sidelines. I mean, this is where I actually think I'll bring in Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. I mean, we need a similar call to action, particularly to the whatever the modern day equivalent of the white moderate is. And there are some, kind of white moderates in the Black church as well, in terms of the same kind of mentality. And so I think it's really crucial that we see a lot more willingness to sacrifice and be uncomfortable and to take some risks if necessary. And it doesn't mean everyone has to be engaged in protest per se, but there's a lot that needs to be done, can be done to support the efforts that we just talked about.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Moving Mountain Mondays, The Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Howard Owens. Sitting in for Terry today is Reverend Adam Taylor, a man of immense qualifications and very, very thoughtful on these contemporary issues to which we're addressing. And our very special guest, Reverend Ted Williams, has decided to stay with us. He's the hot spot for the show today. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Talks are stalled and picketing continues in New York City's largest nurses' strike ever. More than 15,000 nurses are now in week 2 of a walkout at New York City hospitals.
It has been to take care of our patients for safety and for things that how we can take care of New York City together.
Nurses are demanding guaranteed health benefits, safer staffing levels, and better security. New Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger broke inauguration tradition by wearing white to honor the women's suffrage movement instead of the traditional morning suit. She was joined by Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones, the Commonwealth's first Black Attorney General, and State Senator Ghazala Hashmi, the first Muslim woman elected statewide. And Nike is marking Martin Luther King Jr. Day with a special Honor the King LeBron 23 sneaker. The teal design is inspired by the Lorraine Motel, now the National Civil Rights Museum, where King was assassinated in 1968. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has set starting times for next Sunday's NFC and AFC championship games. The Rams are at Seattle, 3:30 kickoff local time on Fox. In the AFC, New England is at Denver, kickoff at noon local time on CBS. Seattle is a 2.5-point favorite over the Rams. The last time the Rams were in Seattle on December 18th, they lost 38-37 in overtime and rolled up 581 yards in total offense against a pretty good Seattle defense. Another NFL head coach is looking for work. The Buffalo Bills fired Mike McDermott Monday morning after 9 seasons. 8 teams now have an opening for a head coach. Buffalo is one of 11 NFL teams that have never hired an African-American to be their full-time head coach. That list includes the Rams, Dallas, New York Giants, Jacksonville, Seattle, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, Tennessee, and Carolina. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me, how to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to TavisTalks.com right now. That's TavisTalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter? Right? And the best part? They accept Discover. Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer. Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times. Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants? These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It is the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. And it would behoove me to honor on this occasion a man whose history has been dropped from the holiday because of the way in which he exited the Congress of the United States. That would be the Honorable John Conyers, who from 1968 until the passage of the holiday in 83 or 84, signed into law by Ronald Reagan, filed the King holiday legislation every single year since Martin Luther King Jr.'s death. John Conyers knew Adam Clayton Powell, Charlie Rangel, was an original founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, dean of the Illinois delegation, had been there forever. And I might add, when he got there in the late 60s, the early 70s, Congress was quite a different culture, a culture more conducive to the lifestyle of Adam Clayton Powell. So John Conyers, for a significant period of time in the Congress, was a single man. He was a single man. But when the Me Too movement came through the Congress, Congressman Conyers was swept up into the Me Too movement with some complaints about how he had treated some staff members. And without making any excuses for that, Conyers was one of the most successful African-American legislators in the history of the United States, and deserves all of the credit that we can possibly muster for his vision on this King holiday. Reverend Williams?
You said it, sir. And I think that it is critical for us to understand that these opportunities for celebration don't come by themselves. Every single victory, every single movement that we have had in this country has been hard fought. And so blessings and kudos to John Conyers and all the folks who laid the groundwork for this. It is the reason why this holiday ought to not just be commemorated, but it ought to be a time for action. I remember real quickly when I was in the fourth grade, Brother Jackson, I was sitting in school in Mrs. Gorman's class in Dalton, Illinois, and in the early 80s, and I was very bored. And she walks in and she said, "We're going to talk about the Civil Rights Movement today. We're going to start talking about Dr. King." And I perked up. Fourth grade, I realized very clearly that people had died so that I could sit in the seat that I was in fourth grade. And it began to move my life in a direction. I didn't come from a family of civil rights. My dad was an entrepreneur, car dealer, a McDonald's owner. My grandfather worked for the city of Chicago. He was politically active, but my parents weren't directly, but my grandfather was. But it gave me this sense of civic engagement. And to know the history behind Dr. King's holiday gives me the same kind of feeling that I have Mrs. Gorman walk in that room to say, I can't waste this holiday. I have to use this holiday to move these issues and our communities forward today. This is not just about having a day off, but it's really about having a day on.
Reverend Taylor, let me ask you a question. You wrote a fascinating book called A More Perfect Union. First, share with us what the book is about, how you envisioned moving the nation forward, and how our listeners can acquire a copy of your book.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll start with the end of your question, which is you can get the book on Amazon, of course, but also on any independent bookstore, which I certainly, would advise. I wrote this book right after Donald Trump was elected the first time to be president of the United States. And I share this story in the book, and I'll share it really briefly here. I was in a very kind of meaningful, but I guess prestigious role at the World Bank at the time. And I saw his campaign where he appealed to and stoked a lot of the worst demons, if you will, in our DNA as a country, particularly racism, misogyny, and xenophobia. And those weren't deal breakers for enough Christians, particularly white Christians. And I lead a nonpartisan organization, so I'm not saying this in a partisan way. I'm saying this in a moral way. And the night after the election, maybe a night or morning that many of us would like to forget, I was up at about 3 a.m. and my older son, who was 5 years old at the time, came into our room and he was like, "Mommy and Daddy, I really need to know who won the election." And we were like, "Well, we think Mr. Trump won." And he literally said back to us, "I don't understand how someone who has said and done such mean things could win." And I was speechless. I didn't know how to respond to my son in that moment. And so I reflected on it, and there were many, I think, reasons, we don't have time to unpack them all, about why Donald Trump won the first time in 2016. But one of the things that I grappled with and felt deeply was that we didn't have a potent and unifying moral vision to counteract the Make America Great Again deep story and narrative. And we know historically that is not a new narrative. It was Ronald Reagan who coined the phrase, "Make America Great Again." In many ways, it was tied into the Southern strategy that Nixon helped to develop and has been mutating in different ways ever since. And so I really felt like building on the core values and ideals that are embedded in the Constitution of the United States, and I would argue are embedded in the Holy Bible. This is what King so often appealed to. He had the Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other, and he was trying to hold our country up and be accountable to those. That we needed to develop a moral vision that, again, could be antidote to Make America Great Again, which for many of us often felt like a dog whistle to essentially make America white again, right? So I've been a kind of student of Dr. King and the civil rights movement, and have long been inspired by the moral vision of the beloved community, which Dr. King constantly would refer to. After the Montgomery bus boycott victory, he gave a speech where he literally said that the end goal of the civil rights movement was reconciliation. It was redemption. It was the creation of the beloved community. So that was kind of the North Star for Dr. King and other leaders like Ella Baker and John Lewis and so many others. And so in this book, I kind of dwell on what they had to say about the beloved community. How did they define it? And it was very much tied to a commitment to agape love, a kind of selfless and sacrificial love, a commitment to nonviolence, a commitment to equality, of course. But then I make the argument that for this thing to really get traction in our current moment, we've got to contemporize it. We have got to recast and reimagine that vision for our current moment. And so my remix of how Dr. King defined the beloved community is to create many communities and a nation where neither punishment nor privilege is tied to our race or our ethnicity or our gender or our sexual orientation, to our religion, to build a country where everyone is equally respected and valued and where everyone is enabled to thrive. And I know it's a big vision, but I think we need a big vision. And I actually think the vast majority of Americans actually don't want to live in an America where whether you are punished or not is connected to any of those parts of our identity, or whether you hold certain privileges over others is connected to those parts of our identity. Now, we can have healthy disagreements about how to get to a place where those things are no longer true, but I think we need to have a clear set of goals that are measurable and aspirational that help us get there. So the book unpacks what the beloved community is all about, and just I'll end here. I named what I call the Beatitudes of the beloved community, building on the Beatitudes of Jesus. And they include a commitment to what I call radical welcome, which we desperately need today in light of the conversation we had about ICE, a commitment to Imago Dei equality, to Ubuntu interdependence. This is built on what I learned in South Africa, that I am because we are, a commitment to dignity for all, and a commitment to environmental stewardship. And so then I kind of unpack those things, but then name ways in which people are living that out all around the country.
It's fascinating because I have a book named A More Perfect Union, Advancing New American Rights.
Yes, indeed.
That I wrote in 2001 and are re-released in 2012. And it follows in spirit many of the themes that you're echoing in your book. Right. Of course, I make a constitutional leap that that these values, the values of the environment, the values of education, the values of healthcare and housing, should be added as fundamental rights to the Constitution. I'm very grateful in this hour that Adam Russell Taylor is our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, along with Reverend Ted Williams. We'll have a couple more questions of our guests when we come forward, and then a closing word of hope from both gentlemen. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 in one moment.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
Refresh your bathroom with big savings at Lowe's. Reimagine your bathroom with up to 40% off select faucets during our Bath Savings event. Need it today? Order by 2 p.m. for same-day delivery by 8 p.m. Shop for your bathroom refresh at Lowe's. We help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location. Same-day delivery on eligible in-stock items, subject to availability. Fees vary. Visit Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for full terms.
Well, good morning, kiddo. I love that you're home from college. I've missed you.
Still taking your Nature-Made vitamins?
Every day. A multivitamin and a probiotic. You better be taking yours.
Still looking out for me, Mom.
I'll never stop.
Made to care for you every day. Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand. Find us in the vitamin aisle, based on a survey of pharmacists who recommend branded vitamins and supplements.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has work source centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds. Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I know you know who it's from.
Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Moving Mountain Mondays, the faith not to fall, with Reverend Terry Hort Owens, who is not with us today, but we have a very special guest. Adam Taylor is our very special guest in this hour. Very grateful for his participation in the show. And of course, Reverend Ted Williams, our regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I understand now, and I'm going to give Reverend Taylor an opportunity to prepare, because the final 3 minutes of our show, we leave it for a word of hope from our visiting contributor, which today, Reverend Taylor, is you. But I've just been, it's been shared with me that on the question of the mountaintop speech, Reverend Ted Williams,
Actor, teacher,
preacher. You know what? You are an actor. This guy's been in movies. That's right, Ted.
Ted, just your humble servant today, my friend. That's what I hear.
I turned on TV one day.
All I am.
I think this guy was buying Subway sandwiches.
I was buying Subway. I'm just here to carry a bag, brother. That's what I'm here for.
No, not at all. Ted, share with us your insights on the mountaintop.
Yeah. So I have a production called 1619, The Journey of a People, that I wrote right before the pandemic hit, to really chronicle the 400-year journey of African Americans and tell African American history, but I always say it's American history, not African American history. Dr. King has been such an inspiration in my own life that there's a tribute section in the show to him. And I do a spoken word piece called After the Dream. I don't know, it might take me a few minutes to get through this, but at the end of the spoken word piece, we get into the mountaintop speech. All right. October 4th, 1964, the world met the youngest man to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize that night. A 35-year-old minister who turned his ministry into a movement for civil rights. Some called him a troublemaker, most a dreamer, but many knew him as a king. He sparked a revolution of love among the masses, and we shall overcome was the anthem they would sing. And yes, it was more significant and exciting than LeBron winning another championship ring. So while we go to the house of the Lord and rightfully worship our Heavenly Father who reigns supreme, I must ask you today in 2026, how many of you will stand tall for Martin's dream? You see, since the 60s, we've been sleeping. We've been suffering from a multi-year hibernation, excusing our inaction through procrastination, waiting on our 40 acres and a mule from the government as our compensation, never realizing that God has given us the power to ensure our own elevation. You see, Jesus Christ, who's the source of my salvation, was a political and social revolutionary who changed nation after nation after nation after nation after nation. And although we think we made it far, we took a 50-year step backwards in America by electing a man who was a reality TV star. And he wants to make America great again. But see, the greatness of America has always been limited by the greatness of its greatest sin. Racism, xenophobia, and the oppression of millions of people, paradoxically in a nation in which Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal. And though Martin and Malcolm gave us part one, we're now living in a sequel in which we strive towards the unfulfilled promise where all men are free, a sequel in which an athlete can lose his job for the peaceful protest of taking a knee, a sequel in which the poor are demonized by a society that worships the elite, a sequel in which the president stokes the fires of racial hatred with the power of a single tweet. There's more to that piece, but I'm going to give you the ending because it goes into Dr. King's words. He said, "We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really don't matter with me now. Because see, I've been to the mountain and I don't mind. Like anyone, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But see, I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up. I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. You see, I may not get there with you. But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And so I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Your producer made me.
Amen.
Reverend Taylor, we have about 4 minutes before the top of the show. Please take your time. A word of hope for our national and international audience that's listening to us on this, the 97th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr.
So a couple of quick thoughts. One, and I'm going to, because it's Dr. King's birthday, I'm going to build on some of his quotes, my favorite quotes by him. So one of the things we have not talked about that I think is one of the forces that is fueling the MAGA movement is this growing white Christian nationalist movement that so often replaces the cross with the flag. And we don't have time to unpack it all. But Dr. King had a quote where he said that the church at its best is called not to be the master or the servant of the state, but to be the conscience of the state. And I think this is a moment where we as the church, those of us that are active in the church, believe in the church and call ourselves followers of Christ, have to be more courageous with our faith and standing for the very ethics that Jesus stood for, that I believe Dr. King also stood for. And those include a commitment to justice and to equality and to human dignity. The other thing that I want to emphasize is the degree to which Dr. King and the civil rights movement more broadly helped to spark and encourage movements for freedom all around the world. There are so many people that I've met in other countries that have learned and been inspired by our civil rights history here, including the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. And so I think, understanding him not just as an American leader, but as a global leader is really critical. And then the last thing that I'll mention is one of my favorite quotes by him, and this is actually kind of the basis of my first book called Mobilizing Hope. In a sermon, and sometimes I don't think we give enough attention to his sermons, he was first and foremost a Baptist preacher. He said, "The saving of our world from pending doom will come not through the complacent adjustment of a conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority." And what that says to me in this moment is that it is those of us that are being creatively maladjusted to the brokenness and the cruelty around us who then take action, as John Lewis would say, get in the way of injustice, that ultimately can turn the tides of history. And we need that transformed nonconformist minority right now. And I think it's building, it's growing. One of the organizations that I do, that my organization does, Sojourners, is we're doing a lot of training of faith leaders in civil nonviolent resistance, because we know we need those muscles right now. You can actually learn a lot more about that in our work at sojo.net. But I'm just prayerful that we can show up in this moment as creatively maladjusted, but it's not just a different mindset. It is also about putting our faith into action in courageous ways.
I'm very grateful, Reverend Taylor, that you participate in our show, and I want you to know that you're welcome back anytime. You've mentioned a number of topics that I do believe we want to unpack whenever you're free. Ted, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future. Happy 97th birthday, Martin Luther King Jr. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We've been celebrating our King on his 97th year of birth. He died at age 39, assassinated, and yet he continues to live. Yes. He lives in our memory, he lives in our thoughts, he lives in our actions, and he's given us a sense of purpose. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.